or she didn't. And furthermore, we're not going to get involved in it. And we don't want to be involved in it. So
you're staying away from there.
Yeah, we can't do anything now to taint his legacy. Anyway, guys, we got to go to a break. When we come back, we'll continue our discussion on the Hillary Clinton campaign. I'm with Joe Hakos from Dry Report. Stay with us right here on the Conservative Syndicate. You can catch all our show archives at theconservativesyndicate.net. The Conservative Syndicate, real conservative talk from real conservatives.
Term life insurance. It can be a powerful way to protect your assets and your family. You work hard to earn and save your money to build a nest egg for the future. Don't let it get wiped out because you didn't plan ahead. Take the time now and make a small investment in $500,000 or more in quality term life insurance. Call the Term Lifeline and let us shop the best companies to give you the lowest rates. We specialize in policies of $500,000 and above. Ask about some of our 10 and 20-year fixed rate plans with guaranteed rates. Call the Term Lifeline right now for your free insurance quote. 800-870-3609. 800-870-3609. You owe it to yourself to protect your family and your assets. Make term life insurance part of that plan. Call the Term Lifeline right now. 800-870-3609. 800-870-3609.
Hey folks, if you're like me, you don't place a whole lot of trust in today's media for the real truth and facts regarding the volatile world of finance and politics. When I want the real scoop on money, I go to the most trusted source I know, my good friend and colleague, Bob Cardoso. Bob is a noted financial expert with a PhD in international finance who airs his nationally known and syndicated show, Robert Cardoso Live, every Monday through Friday, 4 to 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. With Bob, you'll get the right information at the right time, firsthand, from someone who knows his business and can help you make the right decisions concerning yours. Bob airs live every Monday through Friday from 4 to 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time on blogtalkradio.com/Robert Cardoso Live, or you can choose any one of his archive shows at blogtalkradio.com/Robert Cardoso Live. That's blogtalkradio.com/Robert Cardoso Live. For complete and honest commentary on politics, finances, and culture, check Bob out. You'll be glad you did. Okay, hey, we're back right here on the Conservative Syndicate. I'm your host, John Matthews, Mad Prophet of the Airways, on a mission from God, and that mission is to tear down the imaginary wall of separation between church and state. I've got Joe Hakos, my co-host from Dry Report, with us, and we're going to get into talking about what Joe and I, have coined as Hillary's greatest hit list. In more than ways than one, where literally and figuratively speaking. And I wanted to introduce this list this way. I was talking before the break about the article by Anthea Mitchell, and the article is entitled Hillary Clinton's Path to 2016, The Problems She Faced on the Way. Now, the way this article is printed and written, it's like all these obstacles that were put in front of her, and she's managed to overcome them all to become the great diplomat and politician and leader that she is today, rather than saying what the truth is. It's all the situations she created of her and Bill's own doing, in which they've been caught or at least exposed, but never prosecuted for or never called to the carpet for. But anyway, 2 paragraphs out of this, and we're going to get into the best of the Clintons. We'll call it that. We'll call it the best of the Clintons, because it's really the only thing they've ever offered us. But anyway, she says here, Clinton's time as Secretary of State for President Barack Obama brought with it many successes and a strong background of experience working in international affairs. It also brought with it the Benghazi attack on U.S. citizens and the subsequent blame and attacks by conservatives who claim the failure of the security is blamed on Clinton. Notice how conservatives, once again, are pointed out as the bad guys. It goes on a couple of paragraphs down. She goes on to say, long before Clinton was a clear leader, back when Elizabeth Warren was still receiving a great deal of pressure to run, a grassroots PAC began called Ready for Hillary. The group intended to place pressure on Clinton to run and began gathering funding for her eventual campaign. Like many presidential candidates, Clinton wrote a book and toured to promote it. However, this had some unfortunate results for her because of her use of the phrase dead broke when describing her family's finances post-White House. Now, that's really about the only thing we can say that Hillary ever did do, and that is she wrote a book. The book was a dismal failure. We'll probably see it out there in the 99-cent book bin.
Hard choices.
If you haven't seen it already, you will by this time next year. It'll be right there. You'll find it right next to the book on George Bush, which I found. I found a 99-cent version of one of his books. One of the books somebody wrote about him. It might have been Karl Rove or somebody else. Anyway, so I'm looking now here at this article by Mark Tapscott, A Brief Guide to the Clinton Scandals from Travelgate to Emailgate.
Yes, Travelgate.
Yeah, Travelgate to Emailgate. And he starts the article out about quoting Chuck Todd, who has become the NBC's version of George Stephanopoulos. The Clintons can do no wrong. NBC.
Yes, and then we have Bob Schieffer over at CBS trying to be the George Stephanopoulos.
Oh yeah. We're gonna
Scuffleopoulos or whatever his name is.
Yeah, I want to talk about that a little bit later because that's almost comical. I mean,
Yeah.
it's comical. But NBC is now back to its old acronym, nothing but the Clintons.
Yes, Chuck Todd.
Okay. And Chuck Todd writes, if the Clinton fatigue, which is already a disease in the press corps, see, this is what I was saying at the beginning of the show, the idea that nobody really wants to take the time to listen to this again. So Clinton's going to get either elected because everybody's just going to vote for just to shut her up, or everybody's going to vote for because they believe what they're being told. It's going to be that kind of a thing. It's going to be the campaign of 30-second sound bites perpetrated by MSNBC, CNN, CBS, ABC, all the rest of them, okay? And people will just go with that, okay? But he says if Clinton fatigue, which is already a disease in the press corps, actually becomes a problem with the voting public, meaning that people don't show up. I think that's what they're talking about. And these polls, maybe this is the first time that's becoming a problem that is doomed for her. So I guess Todd's assessment is if people do indeed get so disgusted or so bored or so complacent that they don't even show up, then that's going to be a problem for her. Okay, that's the big deal here because
When he means her, he means the Democratic Party.
Right. Because the only votes they'll get are the dead people. So that and the illegals. All right. So here we go. I guess I did this in chronological order.
They did it in chronological order. These are from the first inklings to probably the email.
Okay,
I didn't go
all right.
to the end because
So
the
why
end
don't
is so fresh, and there's so much we can talk about.
Yeah. Why don't you take the first one, Joe?
Well, I we got the Travelgate one and the Hillary Care. We kind of talked a little bit on Whitewater, but the Filegate one was kind of hilarious because of the fact that the Vince Foster's files, removing files from Vince Foster's office. Mm-hmm. Remember, and because he was the deputy White House counsel, and he was a friend of Hillary's, which is probably not a good thing. I'm thinking the ambassador to Libya was probably a friend of Hillary's. And you see what they got him. Anyway, these files were allegedly removed from the White House before they were able to secure it. And it's where they found them, in their residence after a couple years, I think it was. They finally found these files. They just showed up. Oh, Hillary was dusting underneath the little doilies and everything in the White House. I found the files they were looking for, honey.
Yeah, this was supposed to be, I guess, the equivalent to Nixon erasing the 18 minutes of tape or something. That Vince Foster knew that the Clintons were going to go down in the Whitewater scandal. I believe that's what it was. Was it the Whitewater scandal that this all involved?
Yes, the Whitewater.
Yeah, the Whitewater thing. Yeah, where they were associates. Clintons were associates with Jim and Susan McDougal in the Whitewater Development Corporation, and they were apparently found to be using federal regulators for illegal accounting. They were using federal employees to doctor their books up, and taxpayers in that area back there in Arkansas ended up losing $73 million due to the scandal. It was embezzlement is basically what it was.
It's stuff to put other people in jail.
Right.
Just like, John, they really do like money. And that's the reason why the other one, they were going to rent out the Lincoln bedroom. Remember that?
Oh, yeah. That's on the list here, too. And the point being is that Jim McDougal and Susan McDougal ended up going to prison.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
Jim McDougal died in prison of a heart attack. But apparently they had him in solitary confinement, and he had a heart attack, and nobody had been checking on the guy. So apparently that's the story, is that he died in his cell in solitary confinement of a heart attack because nobody bothered to check and see if he was okay, knowing that he had health problems. Okay. Well, the idea with Whitewater, we got to tie Whitewater in because that's where Vince Foster plays into it. Vince Foster, he was the deputy White House counsel, and he was, as you said, a longtime friend of Hillary Clinton. So the idea here is they're saying that what he did was he pulled these files out of the White House and he hid them someplace where he, yeah. And in the process of doing that, he decided to commit suicide. Now, I remember somebody in the media at that time pointing to the fact that when they found his body, they were trying to determine how somebody commits suicide by shooting himself in the back of the head. I think there was a big controversy about that, about the fact that he'd been shot in the back of the head, but he committed suicide.
It's amazing how that works. I don't know, John. It's a mystery.
Yeah. Well, they found his body in a park across from the Potomac River. That's where they found his body. But the point being is that he just decided to end it all. And I would imagine, what kind of a loyal friend does it have to be? You know what, my friends Bill and Hillary are being indicted for something here, so I'll kill myself. Okay, I'm sorry.
It looked a little bit.
The whole thing was very fishy, and of course, it remains to this day fishy, and it was never really cleared up. So we had the McDougals. The McDougals end up in prison. Vince Foster ends up dead. All over their association with the Clintons, embezzling money. And the Clintons had invested $67,000 in this. That's hard to do when you're dead poor. You're dead broke, isn't it?
Yes. Well, it was the beginning of their downturn in income.
Yeah. Okay. So anyway, that was one of the bigger ones. One of the ones that stayed in the press for a while. Then we had the Hillary Care secrecy. Let's talk about that one a little bit because from Hillary Care we got the version of. I actually believe Hillary Care and Obamacare were really the same thing. It's just like everything else in those days, you would have had to read the bill to find out what was in it.
Oh, yeah, they were just going to push. They've been working on that particular kind of legislation for decades,
right?
John, decades, I tell you.
And
since FDR, basically.
I think the reason it failed was that enough information got out there, or enough accusations began to fly around, accusations that there was some behind-the-door deliberations going on. Now, we know today, I was just reading an article today about a guy printed about why we know Obamacare is not a government takeover. And his argument is that Obamacare could not possibly be a government takeover because the healthcare industry, the major players in the healthcare industry are recording record profits. So therefore, because they're making so much money, that means that it couldn't possibly be a government takeover because if it was a government takeover, they wouldn't be making any money. That's the argument that's being presented. Now, we know that if indeed, in the beginning, that Hillary Care or whatever version of this was, however long ago it was, if this was the way it was being perpetrated through the whole time up until Obamacare, is that there were deals being made with these major players in the healthcare industry. And what do we find out? If they're making major profits today, where's that profit coming from? It isn't coming from people paying their premiums.
No, it's coming from the taxpayers, John.
They're coming from the taxpayers. So they're making millions and millions of dollars on the taxpayer dime. This is the continuing revolving circle of you give me money in my campaign, and I'll make sure you get the money back in the terms of subsidies or contracts or anything else, and we'll just keep feeding each other. You know, that
sounds real familiar, John.
Yeah,
I
it sounds real familiar.
I think there's
right?
something in the recent Hillary past that